Hello, welcome back to Deja Vu, where I rewatch the classic TV shows and give a review, and hopefully you do too in the comments. Today, the episode is 6 from season 1 of The Andy Griffith Show, and it's called Runaway Kid. It debuted on November 7th, 1960. The writer was Arthur Stander, directed by Don Weiss. Now, I'm changing up the format a little bit here because you guys know this show. And I feel like maybe it's a little silly for me to go scene by scene through everything, even though I do enjoy it, but it might get a little boring for you on your end. So I'm going to read the synopsis so just so we have an idea of what's going on and then talk about the episode. All right, so a prank played by Opie and a few of his friends teaches a valuable lesson about the importance of keeping promises. Despite having sworn to remain silent, Opie chooses to come clean and confesses to Andy that he and his friends were the ones who parked the squad car in front of the fire hydrant. This leads to a classic showdown between Barney and Andy. Although Andy appreciates Opie's honesty, he emphasizes the importance of honoring one's word. However, this lesson soon comes full circle when Opie befriends a runaway boy. Having promised the boy not to reveal his real name, he goes by Tex, or where he's from, Opie refuses to share this information with Andy, showing he's truly learned his earlier lesson. In the end, Andy, respecting Opie's integrity, stops pressing for answers. When the police inform him about the runaway, Andy manages to persuade Tex to let him call his parents by using a lighthearted comment about carrying hundreds of sandwiches. He later explains to Opie that while keeping promises is crucial, sometimes the greater good and a bit of common sense may require flexibility. Okay, so let's talk about this episode a little bit here. I do want to make mention of a couple notes of it. One, this is Barney owns a vehicle in this episode, which is counter to the episode which we will see later on this season, which is titled Barney's First Car. Just a little continuity error, something that we do see in the Andy Griffith Show. We've talked about it before, and we'll probably see it again later. But he does have a car. This is the last episode where we are going to see Andy and Barney referenced to as cousins. Now, we never I don't remember even formally hearing in any interviews why they dropped this, but it does appear that they did. Something changed and they decided that they wanted to do something a little different here. All right, let's talk about a favorite scene in this episode. Now, this episode, I would say my favorite scene of it is at the 5-minute mark. And this shows Andy's trial with Barney. And it really showcases Andy's ability to banter with Barney. And I want to go ahead and watch that with you for a second here.
Not guilty.
Ask me what I got to say for myself.
What do you got to say for yourself?
I love this.
Well, Your Honor. Well, Your Honor, I'm an honest man, an honest sheriff. Right, John?
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Ask me to speak up.
Look at Barney's
Speak
face. So
How
contorted in confusion.
Well, I guess.
We've always gotten along pretty good all that time, right, John?
Yeah, that's right.
We've served together as law officers, fished and hunted together as friends.
He ain't pleading a case, he's convincing him.
Honest sheriff's office here?
Yeah.
You think I'm an honest man?
Yeah.
You ever want me
Yes.
to do anything
Yes.
outside the law?
Well, no.
I
No.
always live inside the law. Is that right, Your Honor?
That's right.
How long have I been parking in front of this jail, Your Honor?
Well,
Did you ever know me to park in front of a fire plug?
Well, no, not.
No.
I say again, Your Honor, I'm an honest man and
Honest
an honest
man.
sheriff. And I've been parking my car in front of this jail
Look at
for more than
Barney's
5
face.
years now, right?
That's right.
I couldn't possibly have parked in front of that fire plug knowing the law as I
And the
did.
earnest in
Could I
Andy's
have
face.
willfully and deliberately have committed such a violation?
Well, no,
I say there
Yeah, he's
is
got him up
mischief
on the
going
ropes.
on here.
Mister.
I say somebody deliberately pushed my car in front of that fire plug,
That's possible.
making
Possible.
me the innocent victim of circumstantial evidence.
That's all.
Oh, there's
That's
foul
awful.
play afoot here, Your Honor. I say this whole thing is a travesty on justice. I throw myself at the mercy of the court.
Not guilty.
All right, so that scene is awesome. There's a real dynamic obviously being seen here already between these two. They are comfortable with each other. They play well off one another. I still think that Barney has not quite found his character yet, or the writers haven't, one of the two. However, they just do excellent together on screen. And Barney is doing a very good job here of just, well, playing who Barney is. But the part that I like here is that Andy, he is so forceful in what's going on. If anybody has ever watched Face in the Crowd, he really reminds me of himself in that movie. I can't remember his character's name anymore in there. It's been a little while since I've seen it. But when he starts becoming this political maniac and he's just convincing crowds everywhere, this is exactly the way he kind of speaks. Granted, he's a little louder and a little more forceful in that movie, but this is very reminiscent, to me at least, of Face in the Crowd. And it just shows that although I think he kind of got typecasted in certain ways, he did have some acting chops on him. What's your least favorite scene in this episode? At the 16-minute mark is about mine. I'm really not a fan of this part, and it's probably unfair that I feel this way about it. But this is where Andy decides to keep the kid at his house until he's ready to go home. Now, he decides to have the kid stay with him until he's ready to go home. Now, obviously, this seems like a terrible idea. This kid is missing. He's run away. The parents don't know where he's at. And you have to give the episode credit because it's not even a minute later when Andy is trying to convince him that, hey, you really should go home. He gives him the whole sandwich argument. However, when you're first watching it and you first see that part where he talks about keeping him, you don't know that. It's an odd way for it to start going, especially from a sheriff. Now, also to give credit, Barney, although in a lot of episodes he is not the deputy that I want responding to a call for me, in this episode he absolutely is, because he's the one that gets ticked off that they're not going to take this boy home right away. Now, it was not even a minute later, but still, Barney throws a fit. He is ticked. And then we do eventually see where Andy convinces him to go home. Now, it's just, maybe this is part of being a father, but I just cannot stand the thought of my kid is missing. He's miles away, and the other person doesn't immediately think to call me, but instead convinces my kid first. No. Tell me. Now, this is Mayberry. Nothing bad's going to happen. We've talked about that before as well. Still, from my own vantage point, it just makes me uncomfortable. I don't like that part of the episode. So just my general thoughts on this episode. I really hate the idea of the kid running away and them not telling immediately. I know we just talked about it for my least favorite scene. But they laugh it off. Even earlier than that scene, there was a part where even Aunt Bee was kind of laughing it off. And I just don't think it's very funny. And that and the other part of this episode that I think that Barney is, like I said earlier, still trying to find himself, or the writers are trying to find him. Like, he's not quite the Barney that we see in the later episodes. He's still funny, don't get me wrong. Still very funny. But it's just a little different. Just getting their footing. Now, is there a moral lesson available in this episode? Because a lot of times there are on this show. I would say that if there was, it's that you are to never break a trust or a promise, as Andy tells his boy. But the caveat is that not all trusts are good. Not everything is good for you. Not every promise is good for you. And sometimes it can be made in ignorance. And so I think that's kind of what he was trying to teach the boy there. And I don't think that that's what was taught to him, though, because he didn't have Opie tell him. He did not. Now, we can say that, yeah, he knew who the boy was and everything ends up okay. But it still wasn't necessarily the best way to have taught him that. Like, he needs to have learned that not all promises are good. Like, this could have hurt the boy, or this could have hurt the boy's parents. So I guess in a way I'm just not a complete fan of the moral lesson that's available here. Yes, we are to keep our word, but what if that word hurts people? Now, I usually try to rate with a Mayberry After Midnight score of 1 through 5. 1 being I'm going to turn the channel off if it's on. 5 being that it's a perfect episode. Just as I have a 4, I think we had at least one other 3. If not, this would be the first 3. But I would give this a 3. I don't hate it. I don't love it. But it's definitely a 3 for me. There's some things about it that I've talked about that I'm just not a fan of. but it's still the Andy Griffith Show. I still put this way ahead of any of the shows that are on today, that are being created today. It's just that if we had to be picky with the episodes of this show, not my favorite. Definitely a 3 this time. Well, that's my review of the episode. I hope that you get into the comments sections and let me know what you think. Let me know what you think I'm wrong on, what you thought of the episode in general, and just please come back and join me again for another episode review on Deja Vu.